Welcome everyone to Thursday of LocalGov Drupal Week 2025. Thanks a lot for coming. Hope you're staying warm. Everyone so far seems to be checking in with, I'm very cold. So I hope you're staying warm. My name is Aaron. I'm the community lead for LocalGov Drupal. And this session is called Getting Your Content Foundations Built to Support LocalGov Drupal Migration. It's with Jayvik and Nova and Ben from Luton Council. So thank you so much for running the session. Before we get cracking, I just want to say thank you to our event sponsors, Anatech, who are our current developers, Agile Collective, who are our previous developers through Alpha and Beta, and they still work with us on the support and maintenance side, and Big Blue Door, who are currently sponsoring Mark Conroy to work on the platform. And thank you also to our council and supplier subscribers, who are all lovely, and our supporting partners, who are also lovely. And without you, we wouldn't be able to do these sorts of events. So thank you. In terms of Zoom help, if this is your first time, you're quite new to Zoom, you can toggle how you view this session in the top right. And as you will have seen already, people are doing nice reactions. There's a react button at the bottom. If you click on that, you can choose reactions. You've also got the option there to raise hand, which you're welcome to use in the Q&A. We'll do the Q&A at the end. If you've got questions, you can raise your answer. It's really nice to have people asking these questions, but you can also just type in the chat as we go. If you've got questions, just bring them in and I'll come back to those when we get to that point. We are recording, so if you could just check that you're on mute while we're doing the presentation, that'd be great. And we also say generally turn your camera off. It's good for the environment, but you're welcome to bring camera on when you're actually talking or if we're doing in the Q&A section. And that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Jayvik.
Excellent. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone, for attending. Hopefully what you find over the next, half an hour or so is helpful. So I'll start by having my screen shared. If you just give me a second. Cool. So hopefully you guys can see myself and the presentation.
Yes.
So yeah, as Aaron said, today's session is focused on getting your sort of content foundations, so get that content homework aligned as you kind of begin or start on that journey of LGD migration that we're doing at Luton Borough Council. So introducing myself, so I'm Jayvik Patel. I've been at Luton Borough Council for about 6 months as a strategic digital service manager. Joining me on today's session, I'll have Nova, who's within my team as the digital lead, content design, and Ben, who's our content designer that we've contracted on board for this project, as well as another contractor called Steph Wilson. So they're supporting us through this migration. My aim here is to really share on how we've kind of approached the migration itself. The website's been around for a while, so 2 key topics will be around content audit and content governance, and really diving into that approach and getting quite into the practical nitty-gritty frameworks. I'm not one for keeping most of our time on presentations. I like to actually show people and share people, and that's what I love about this community. So before and then what we're kind of changing to ahead of when we launch our website. So when it comes to content audit, what I'm going to go through is obviously the state of our current site, what's on there, what kind of learnings and sort of past feedback that we've have internally, looking at our analytics. Ben will talk about how we've kind of used Miro to really, be our playground to assess and audit how much the website just needs changing, I think. And then 2 key outputs of that kind of audit were a report which we kind of shared internally, just to give a sort of a hard truth and shine the spotlight on, it needs changing, and what we can do to bring ourselves up to best practice and best standards. Then I'll touch on the sort of a prioritization matrix that's helped sort of our content audit sprints, and then how we kind of share that progress. And then the content governance part, we'll talk about, okay, what we've had before. So we have a centralized model, but how did we run that before? How did the teams, the digital services team, which I know we'll touch on, and how we worked, and then what's changing. So phase one is sort of a new process, a new mechanic for people to request website changes to the intranet as well as the external website. And then phase two is trying to make sure we have some longevity. So we have a key service contact always, and then there's always a kind of reminders and checkpoints that to make sure a page is always refreshed and kept up to date. So yeah, I'm going to get out of my simple and plain presentation and dive into actual practical steps. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. There you go. So this is our lovely website, so Luton Council. So it's actually run off SharePoint 2016, quite basic, quite old, and in need of massive change. And our project really began, I'd say, around August time. So I joined in June, but that pre-homework involved, first step was just assessing what do we have. So what we did was extract from the back end and put into an Excel file across these three topics of pages, documents, and images. How much do we have? So we've got about 7,000 images, or just over 6,000, sorry. There's about nearly 4,000 documents, and then there's about nearly 2,000 pages. And those numbers, to me, kind of seem quite large, having not worked in public sector before, but knowing other councils, they might seem quite small. But that's what I aim to reduce and really revamp as we move towards our new website. I'm going to unhide one of the tabs for pages and let Ben come in here at the moment. But what this essentially showed is every single page, how far sort of page depth it went, and some of them went to level 8, which is quite astonishing for myself that I was finding. And then for us, it was kind of going through, okay, these three cons were quite key in terms of working with Ben and Steph on, okay, what the next steps, what level of design do we need, and any notes. So yeah, I'd love to get your comments, Ben, and coming on this, on how you found that so far, how you found that looking at this.
Yeah, thanks, Jayvik. Yeah, so as Jayvik mentioned, basically myself and my colleague Steph Wilson were brought into the project to kind of lead on the content design. And anyone who's done this before knows that the audit part is like the crucial part, but it's also incredibly time consuming. So I guess one of the learnings is, in terms of learning how to do this stuff, is really to start the audit ASAP, because it's like the foundation for the entire project. And basically, yeah, we had a lot of data, but we had the kind of the quantitative side, but we really didn't have much qualitative analysis of this. So basically what we did was we went through every single page, and this is kind of what I always do. I go through every single page and make an assessment of that page. Now, bearing in mind this site had or has 2,200, I think, roughly pages. You can imagine how long that takes. So yeah, in the audit, we created these columns which were um, an analysis of how much work we thought. So we had a sort of a metric. One was full content design, one was sort of partial content design, and one was move as is. And the reason we did that was really because full content design was like the most we could do to a page. And by applying that filter to every single page, by the end of it, it gave us the scale of what we were up against, because just data can't really tell you that. Like, you have to make that qualitative analysis. So we basically went through every single page and gave it an assessment of full, partial, or move as is. I mean, you probably won't be surprised to know that most of it was full or partial. There was very little move as is. And then we basically also looked at where that what section that might be going into, so that by the end of it we could see how many pages potentially we were likely to have to move, and then which pages we were likely to delete as well. Part of that is as well, we did the whole customer journey analysis, so we looked at the documents and the images, so application forms, PDFs, and to get a scale of how much work there was from a PDF point of view as well. And then also, if we had, say, PDF forms, if there was an opportunity to create digital versions of those forms as well. So that audit took us 4 weeks maybe
Yeah.
to do that. And then, as Jayvik said, we then created a report. And I always try and write a report as well, because often that goes to boards or stakeholders, and it really gives them a sense of, they might have underestimated the scale of what is needed, which I think is a really good way of sort of telling stakeholders this is how much content design is needed. Because a lot of the time I'm brought in because people don't have content design in their organization, and so maybe they don't understand what it takes to do full content design. So I think that report was a really useful way of, showing how much work is to be done. And then also it was the basis of the prioritization, which I think maybe Jayvik's going to come on to.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
allowed us to then think about what order should we do these sections in, and is everything being migrated, or are we moving some kind of automatically? So yeah, basically that's what we did.
Yeah. So then from this we kind of, myself, Ben and Steph, and Ben and Steph, so went off and worked on Miro, and as you can see, this is the current lay of our website, so our current information architecture, and this is changing. So we looked at analytics, we looked at heat mapping, we looked at yeah, a bunch of verbatim feedback that we had in our inbox. Obviously, there is obviously internal talks as well. So that kind of, this mirror board kind of was that core homework that really put the foundations in for the next things I'm about to show you. So the other two sort of exercises we did was sort of just list out what, just from the get-go, what we wanted within sort of our CMS, and put notes and examples of things that are already out there. So when we were about to onboard our supplier, so we were working with Anatech, they knew where we wanted to go to, and already have an idea of how to get our environment set up and what we needed from the get-go. And I kind of put this short presentation together and share with Anatech on just looking at sort of a mobile first. So about nearly 70% of our website traffic comes from a mobile device. So just putting a basic wireframe just to give guidance, and Anatech some initial thoughts on what internally that we sort of liked, or came across other LGD websites when it came to those different page templates, or how news is run, or how step-by-steps and events is kind of used. So that, all that kind of pre-work just helped when we onboarded that supplier to really get the ground running. Ben talked about, obviously, from our audit, we had the report. The key learning was, there was, I think, everything just needed to be reset in terms of just aligning to our the way we want to write, the way we want to display information, adhering to sort of the GDS content framework. And the other second mechanic was a prioritization matrix, so which is I'll touch on here. So what we did internally was looking at key criteria. So you had user needs, so that's looking at analytics, how were a lot of people going to the bins or health and social care, and then SME, so you're in this context is subject matter experts, so basically the service teams, how ready were they to sort of give their time and support in terms of helping us with this content migration and content audit, and then related to sort of the content itself in terms of form and content, how complex was it, also the revenue, how much revenue, contribution was it to the council that we felt internally, and then sort of that political need, and everything had a kind of a weighting. So if I just unhide some of these columns, you can see they were weighted at a certain percentage, and then that kind of figure gave us, and adding all these together just gave us a sum of a score, and then that score helped us actually determine where do we start in terms of focusing first. So our sort of fours where bins and council tax, they were higher up there, followed by sort of the careers and the volunteering pages, and then news and council elections. And then what we found, there's quite a lot of it in the that scored 2. So then what we did was look at a bit more deeper, then just give each one a sort of ranking. So housing was ranked number 1 out of those 2, and then that kind of helped us build out a plan on, and when we have our content audit sprints, what we kind of want to tackle first. So we've aiming to go with public beta for council tax and benefits, hopefully mid-December. So keep a lookout for that. But I'd love to get the sort of the people on the call, and Aaron, I'd love to put a poll out there and just see what what is high in their council, if it resonates with what we're seeing here.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So I'm gonna open a poll in Zoom. Jayvik, just to be clear, can you just restate your
Yeah.
priorities?
So our priorities are council tax, bins, and jobs as the sort of the top 3, and then we're looking at obviously if you sort of look at council services, so your elections sort of sections, and then as I said, there's a lot in 2. So I'd be interested to know, do a lot of people rank council tax, top in their council, or is it more housing or leisure and parks? And it'd be interesting to see how they kind of would approach this.
Okay, cool. So the poll's live. We've had 12 people fill in so far. So far, most people are saying very closely or quite closely.
Yeah.
So far, only one person has said anything quite different, and one person saying don't know, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
But yeah, most people are saying very closely or quite closely. We're up to 26
Excellent.
now.
Excellent. No, great. No, that's good to know, and I think hopefully what we continue to go on, helps that. So in terms of what we did next is obviously we had a few sort of approaches on how we kind of kick off these meetings with these service teams. So initially we put a kick-off meeting in, say with council tax, then get them to essentially have a list of the URLs. So this is an example of for the registry office or register office. We'd say to that service, look at these URLs, tell us what next action you'd like to do, any notes, and then who that content owner is. So we kind of had these Excel files all shared out with the service contacts. That's quite a task as well, trying to find the key contact for that key page or that key information. So that involved talking to various people internally. I was leaning on support from my team as well, so who've been here longer than me on actually who's the right person to go to. So that was a challenge in itself, trying to nail down that person and then obviously get in touch with them. But what we found actually with the nature of our project and how sort of fast we're kind of running is we've kind of just pivoted to actually just diving into the content, entering the content audit itself. So I kind of share our sort of progressions on our sort of digital blog. So Luton, Digital Luton is sort of the DDAP blog that we have. So every month I kind of give a summary of, how we're doing on this particular project. So, have a read of that. There's some more information, and if you've got any questions or, would love to know more than happy to have a chat. But what we actually ended up doing was creating these team content sprint chats. So for example, for bins and waste and recycling, we'd have a Teams chat set up with myself, Ben, and Steph, and then those stakeholders, and then just have that sort of virtual open table to ask questions and drop in screenshots, share preview links, and then just give them up-to-date feedback on what work we are doing. And then we'd say, okay, this will take 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and then we'll have a meeting just to review and sign off. So that's kind of helped us get to the stage where actually council tax and benefits, touch wood, is good to go live sort of mid-December. And then those sort of progresses and the updates are shared back to a project board. So set up a project board with senior stakeholders at the end of every month. So we had the first one last month, and that just plays back, okay, where are we going to, or what section are we looking at first, and then what support I could lean on for my senior stakeholders. But if there's anything else that they could tell me that's, you know, in 3 months or 4 months time that I need to be aware of. So it just gave everyone a kind of, yeah, a full 360 on the project itself. And obviously sort of sharing it internally and externally helped. So that's sort of on the content audit side. So the next few minutes, I'm going to now sort of dive into our content governance. So when I first started, so the digital services team, we have an inbox that people can email in. There were inbox days where people wrote to, and we had a Trello board that we essentially used, or we met up once a week for an hour and kind of went through sort of these buckets. So Nova and my team, yeah, Nova, if you could give a quick overview on so how the DWR and what DWR what was then back then would be great.
I mean, this was when we first started with Trello and Slack. It was just an amazing move forward compared to where we'd been. Everything was just done through the inbox initially, you know, and it was always just so full. So, you know, just so many emails. It was crazy. So this was a really good way. We created a digital work request form that when that was submitted, an email would come to the team inbox. We'd then put that request up onto the Trello board. It had all the details. It was, compared to where we'd been before, it was an amazing move forward. Yeah, we've moved forward again now, as Jay's going to go into. But just with this, so there were certain smaller tasks. If something wasn't going to take very long, like a simple document upload, then they could just email the inbox. But generally, you know, if a task took longer, then it would go into that inbox column and would just move through. Once it was allocated from the inbox, it went to estimation, and then it moved forward through the various stages of getting that task done. And you know, you could have sort of all your uploads and all your notes and everything on. So if I was off, somebody could pick up my task just by having all that information on the Trello card. So it worked, you know, it worked very well. But yeah, I think Jay's going to talk more onto the new process. So
Yeah.
I'll hand
So
over.
yeah, no, thanks, Nova. So
problem.
no, thank you. So the key thing that I identified was around just a transparency on actually back to the service owner, or you know, the person requesting that, and you know, just making it transparent on, okay, how is my task being handled, who's actioning it. So what I wanted to do is obviously just bring it a bit more aligned to some of the tools that we already have. So we have Microsoft 365, and I wanted to automate and actually embed not just within our team, but also the, you know, the people requesting their side, and a sense of accountability. So it's a two-way conversation, and sometimes when these sort of tasks came in, they look quite small, but actually it ended up being quite big, and trying to plan that resource or trying to plan that time became, yeah, it just became tricky to nail down. And sometimes there were gaps in terms of, you know, when we could deliver, or sometimes we were just you know, left waiting in the dark, and it was kind of just like, okay, we don't know what's happening with this request. So what I sort of looked at, okay, we have Microsoft 365, we have Forms, we have Power Automate, we have Planner, but also we have the sort of we have Outlook as well. So before getting into that, I wanted to sort of apply that principle of user-centered design internally. So what we actually did was run through the new process through a pilot with key people that might have submitted quite a few requests in the last 3 or 4 months, or were quite key decision makers, and had quite high level requests that came in every now and then throughout the year. And we kind of had this framework or this sort of UAT logbook that we kind of prepared. So what we did was we created a form, we created that new process using Power Automate and populating into Planner, and then actually did a pilot of about I think a few weeks. But we reached out to them, set a UT session aside, and recorded that, and then myself and Shane in my team as well, we sort of then just recorded that, so then we could actually capture what their feedback was, what kind of sort of things they were seeing, and then ultimately, you know, get that sign off on it. So we had about I think 8 or 9 people for UAT, and that gives really good feedback to really then revamp it and then share their internal comms internally, to say, actually, you know, this is the process that's changing and what the new process looked like. But on that topic, and before I sort of dive into the form itself, is actually I'd love to get people's opinions on how their kind of process is at the moment. So how do they edit, or how do content requests come in to a team or to a person? So I think it'd be great to run a poll on that kind of centralized and decentralized question.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to run poll number 2. It's launched here. There are 2 questions for this one. And this is, as Jayvik was saying, it's about whether how you're managing your content, whether you're managing it through a centralized team or decentralized. So you've got authors in service teams. And the second question is, if you could change, would you want to? Obviously, we don't know the link between these 2 questions, but so far, majority are centralized. Jayvik, we've only got 3 out of 27, 3 out of 28, 3 out of 30, so 10% saying decentralized. So very small number there. And most people are centralized, and most people are also saying no. Some people are saying not sure. A couple of people are saying yes. Whether those people that are saying yes are decentralized, that would be interesting to share in the chat.
Yeah, please do. And it's a question that's, you know, sort of been constantly posed to me, is, you know, there's always kind of requests from service teams to say, oh, what if we could, you know, edit the content, or what if we could, instead of going to you, do it ourselves? So some of the, you know, hopefully in the chat, there's that kind of, again, piloting or that testing of that workflow. So as we move on to LGD, you know, that's something you know, I will consider. It's just, you know, taking baby steps, I think, and making sure it's, for me, it's always about the end user, right? So making sure that if we do open the door up, that they still are adhering to, you know, our design system, and they fully get that user need and why that content is there in the first place. So no, thank you everyone for engaging in the poll. So I'll dive into actually the sort of a new process at the moment now. So what we've done is broken up into different types of MS forms. So you could request a content request, you could request a forms, and what I'll actually show you is we've integrated into our IT help desk. So being within the DDAT team, sort of everyone has access to this system, and we've created a sort of a service catalog. And this, as you can see, is broken down into different request types. So if you wanted any of these, you click on them, it'll open up a MS Forms, for example, this content one. And sort of one of the feedback that we had in the UAT, someone asked, oh, would you charge for this service? And the answer is no, it's free. But what I would charge is for your time and report and support. So I need your kind of that two-way collaboration. It's not just a one-way street of, you know, we will always fulfill your request. Let's have a chat and let's have a, you know, discussion what you really want, what does a real user need, and it might not be, you know, as big or small as you kind of initially sort of requested. So this form goes through key questions for ourselves, like, okay, who, you know, whereabouts are you from? So I'll do a small test here, and then some questions. Place. So if I'm ever away, then, you know, one of the team could contact this other person, which is quite valuable and hopefully makes the task, you know, complete quicker. Because again, going back to that state of we're all just left in limbo on not knowing who and when are they going to send us. Okay, we ask, okay, is it for the external website or the intranet? So I'm going to do an external website. and then just a brief title. We give a small example, so I'll just copy and paste that there for this one. And then this is key, so just the sort of prioritization. So do you need something right now? And by today, we actually ask them to say, okay, why? And it's based on sort of, yeah, is it serious reputation damage, something has happened, or there's something in the town centre, or the threat to life situation that we need to get something out on the website, or there's a specific date. And then on the next side, if you select that, you can obviously choose what date you ideally need this to go live. So let's say, you know, the 26th. And then is it for new existing? So I'll say existing, and then you go through the form, you fill in what page it is, does it need to be unpublished, and then here's where you enter as much information as you can. Sometimes they might know this, but if they do, this is all for our team is always good to know, because then it kind of gets us sort of thinking about, okay, because of the request this change, you know, let's also look at how it might request how this request might affect other pages. And then we sort of end on this, going back to that principle of UCD, what is that key user need? Why do they need this information? And again, it could be as simple as, you know, there's a new scheme, or there's new funding, or there's a new event or new community center opened up. But we want the services to start thinking about the user need and being a key part of their request. Document upload. So we ask, you know, for this request, is this required? Yes or no? And then depending on what the answer, obviously they'll go through. So I'm just going to enter some details here. Do this. And then what we ask for is sort of have an optional estimator meeting. So this is that kind of that meeting to actually iron out and figure out, okay, what work is involved, outline both actions for both parties, so not just for the DSC but for that service team, and discuss actually what is the real hard deadline or soft deadline. And we ask that person, okay, when are you free to have a meeting? And ideally say, yeah, within the next three working days, and people put in those dates, and then they press submit. And then what happens in the back end is this Power Automation. So using Power Automate, so built, but each form is saying, okay, look at this form, get the responses or the detailed answers from the forms. I'll put in a delay just for the system for a catch up, and then based on the different logic and scenarios, run these certain cases. So if someone wanted an urgent request for the external website, create a task in Planner. And depending on what the directorate is, it's labeled with a different color, so we can know from Planner actually, who's requesting the most and where's it coming from. And then again, another delay just so everything catches up in automation. And then the task itself is actually updated with key details automatically from that form. So then the team know, okay, certain key information, so they've already got that at hand. And that then sort of populates in our Planner here. And the key move has been to sort of apply more sort of as an agile methodology. So as I said, we used to meet once a week for an hour, but now we meet twice a week for half an hour, go through what we call our digital service board. We sort of run at a 3-week sprint. So each sprint is on that timeline, and we kind of then just build out, or have done for the next few months, what that sprint dates look like. And then all those kind of requests automatically come into the inbox, and when they come in, they obviously get assigned, they get moved to that right sprint. They will sit in estimation if there is an estimation meeting involved. Hopefully it shouldn't sit in this sort of list too long before it's moved into the bucket, into the sprint. So our sprint one is recently been completed, so we know actually what level of volume the team can work at. And I don't want the team to burn out, or feel like there's not enough work coming in, but it's just give a sense of for myself, okay, how much are we getting asked, or looking at what we might need to work on for the future. So that's essentially how our kind of content governance has been running, and there's been some good feedback on actually how we can improve the process when it comes to from both sides. So from the services, we'd love to actually upload the document or a document straight in the form, so that's on the radar for feature enhancement. Sometimes a time as well as a date would be good to say, because it might not be available all day, but if they could give an indication up front, that'd be great for the team to know. And then from my team also, it's knowing actually, you know, who those key people are in the task, rather than the details of the task, so they can see straight away on the task, okay, I need to Teams message this person, or, you know, email this person. So that's phase one. Phase two, once we're in LGD, is obviously to build off that. And once and what this helps is knowing those key service contacts. We can have our sort of, you know, service contact list, and then assign those pages or assign that content, put automated triggers in place to say, hey, you know, Jayvik, you need to review this page in 3 months' time, you know, and put those triggers in place in LGD. And the key thing, you know, is the why. So I want to streamline the process, stop that, that knee-jerk reaction just to say, you know, hey, we need to get this out there, we'll put it out there. It needs to be a more collaborative culture mindset, hence that question of that user need. What is that user need? Always going back to that, and just making them maybe pause and think, actually, is this needed on the website, or is this something that might not be in? I might put a request in, but have an estimation meeting about it. And if it doesn't need to be on the website, then it doesn't need to be. So there's been some lessons learned, and I think what we can think about is how we can influence the sort of that design first, having this process in place, and think about that content design and UCD, and be more proactive rather than reactive. So I'll stop sharing because that's the end of my sort of topics, but open the floor for Q&A now, or anything within the chat, and happy to answer.
Well, that was fab, Jayvik. Thank you for sharing. And particularly, it's really nice to see the sort of back end workings in quite a lot of like nitty gritty detail, and also just exploring that. How do you tackle BAU versus a complex migration project, which comes up a lot. Lots of love in the chat. I'll let you have a look at that in a minute. And there are some questions. So I'm just going to zoom up to the top. And I just wondered, Ben, if you wanted to say anything more about the timeline. So Larry was saying 4 weeks is very impressive to do the audit. Were you able to focus the whole time on the audit, or did you have other work to do? Because I know you're sort of contracted. There's a particular arrangement which other councils might not have, but
yeah. So we had the benefit of not doing any BAU, so we were purely working on this project. There were other things. So that Miro board that Jayvik shared, if he'd zoomed out of that, it's about 10 times bigger than that. And basically that is where we put all of the insight and all of the sort of search analysis that we did, peer analysis that we did. It's where we create the new IA, and really in terms of the tasks, the audit fed into that. So that Miro board became our sort of central focus for everything. And I think the other benefit of doing that is I find that a lot of SMEs respond a lot better visually than they do lines in a spreadsheet. So by having a very visual representation of the entire project in one space, particularly when we're going into services, I find that people respond really well to that. But yeah, in terms of how quickly we did it, I mean, we were working at a pretty swift pace. I mean, I'd probably say per page, we were spending 2 or 3 minutes per page, maybe, and just really making a very quick analysis of the quality and then moving on. I did, if you had more time, you'd spend more time doing it, but like most of these projects, you don't really have that time. So yeah, it was quick to do it in 4 weeks. And that was 4 days a week. So that's 4, 8, 12, 16. Yeah, it probably took us 16 days, maybe 18 days to do it.
Okay. And then 2 minutes times 2,270 something, I think it was. You could do the maths as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And also we were analysing the documents as well. It wasn't even just the pages. We were looking at the quality of the documents at the same time. So it was quite a lot to fit in, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Ben. Brad at Islington asks, were some teams noticeably harder to contact and or get engaged with than others? So they're about to share spreadsheets with their content owners and subject matter experts now.
Yeah.
How did you tackle that?
Yeah, no, good question. And being news counsel myself, I didn't know anyone actually, so I kind of leaned on my team. And how do I contact them? For me, I various methods. So email, Teams. I tried to get into any of their if they had a regular meetings, so for example, customer services have, I think it's twice a week or monthly meetings, comms have sort of weekly meetings. If I could start to embed myself, or maybe in your council, a key person in their kind of regular rhythm, then you can obviously have obviously an awareness of what's happening, but also let them know, look, we need your support. We're working on this. The train's already left and moving, so we'd love to get your time and support on this. And just asking around, I think I'm mainly working from home, but if I can get out to Luton town hall where we're based, and actually just physically just meet the people in those teams, and then if I don't know them, or that key person owner, just say, oh, I'm working on this, could you point me in the direction? Then I think over the space of, where are we now? Yeah, November. Over the space of like the last month, that's what I've just been doing, is that kind of internal networking and putting that service contact list together, and then just refining it. And customer services actually have been a quite key stakeholder and support, so they'll know a lot more people. So if you get to know a few people in your customer services, they can help you triage and say, look, actually speak to someone about this in housing, they might help you, and then it just snowballs from there.
Aaron, can I just quickly add to that as well? So the other thing as well, in terms of for content point of view, I find that the quicker you can have a kickoff and meet with the service, the better, because I use those meetings to really sell what I'm doing, and also to meet their expectation about what I'm bringing to the table versus what I expect of them. And I think a lot of the time people think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on what I'm asking them to do. But when I explain that I'm doing the content and that they're kind of the accuracy, like they own the information, but I'm doing it, and that it gives them the confidence to kind of relax, and that this is something that I am doing, and that they're working with me, and really explaining about how this can make their life easier as well. In terms of, we're trying to improve, it kind of falls into service design. Like, if we're creating online digital solutions for your team, you don't have to deal with printed PDFs. Then they get the, oh, how it's making my life easier, but it's also making residents and businesses' lives easier as well. I think the earlier you have that, then you bring them along on the journey with you. So I would have those meetings as sort of early as you can.
Nice, thanks, Ben. So we've got a couple of minutes. We might go slightly over because I think there's a few more questions. Nova, I wondered if you wanted to just follow up on this question about team size. There were a couple on that. So Larry was asking what was the size of the team working on the inbox/request. So I think that's the BAU, and Jenny was following that up with what are the BAU resources for your website team, and did that differ to the project team? You're muted at the moment.
I'm muted, right? No,
There we
I'm
go.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think I did reply. So basically we had 5 of us that worked on what we were allocated inbox duty for one day every week. And that dealt with basically everything that came in. If it was a Trello request at the time, then we would just put it up onto the Trello board and kind of just assess it. Then it would get allocated. So we didn't have to do all of that work necessarily. It could be allocated. But if it was, we'd look at the task. If it was something we could do on inbox day, then we would. But yeah, we each basically had one day a week where that was our job. And then we kind of just fit the rest of our work in as much as we could through that day and on the other 4 days.
And then I think Jayvik, you were saying that in terms of the project team versus the BAU, it's all the same team, and you've got to juggle. That's sort of where you're having one board to sort of bring in the BAU part of a sprint as well as project part of a sprint and manage it that way. Is that right?
Yeah. So we have the BAU, which the DST sort of, as I said, we meet up twice a week, with Ben and Steph on board. Obviously, the main project that sort of seeped into our world is this external website. So the main delivery or milestone is probably I want them to obviously Jan onwards, because we've got a pretty sort of hard deadline, is get them sort of supporting some of that project work, and then I think that will become, I don't want to say a harder balance, but I just think there needs to be some kind of and people talk about like a content freeze, but some kind of period where actually, you know what, there's not much point working on doing things, you know, for the site now, because we're going to change it in a few months' time. So let's, you know, get as much resource as from our side working on the new site, and then, you know, hopefully, yeah, the balance will manage until when we go live.
Cool. There's still a few more questions, so I'm going to go to, and just saying this to Tim, because we've got another session at 1, but we'll do a hard cut at just before 10:02, so we can flip over.
Yeah.
I do want to cover the questions because I think they're interesting. So David at Croydon asks, from a technical point of view, how did you manage the user that owns the planner / Power Automate tasks?
Yeah, so I'll just going to reply back to you, David, in the chat. But I'm not sure if I understand this question correctly, but in terms of the plan and the power automation, so I created that, or I created the power automation and then the planner as well. So the team have access to the planner, so it's a shared planner within our shared sort of SharePoint group. And at the moment, the power automate is sort of, I'm the main owner, and sort of, yeah, just edit and update as and when that kind of, you know, as feedback has come in from my team and the services. So just to add those feature enhancements in around uploading documents. So hopefully that answers your question, but happy to have a chat separately as well if you wanted to dive deeper.
Cool, thank you. We've got a thumbs up from David, so I think you answered this question.
Cool.
Larry at Hackney, how have services responded to this more collaborative than reactive approach?
Yeah, good question. It's definitely some teams are, you know, fully with us. You know, for example, parking streets and transports, they're ready for change. I think people have been waiting sort of a long time for the external website to change. So when you talk to them and say, oh look, we're moving to a new platform, it's changed, they're like, oh really? I didn't even know, even though we've had several internal comms out there. But it's yeah, once you make yourself available via, you know, having a call with them or seeing them in person, or just, you know, dropping them a Teams message and just let them know, I think, yeah, they've kind of come around. There's been some teams which are, I think, you know, kind of been challenged in terms of how and what to show. Like there's a big demand, or, you know, not demand I'd say, but still appetite for PDFs. But that's sort of the hurdle to challenges and targeted comms, and try to show them, you know, actually what best practice is, but also, you know, what other councils might have done. So lean on, you know, some of the councils that are on the call, you know, what's been happening in, yeah, Kingston, Hackney, in Brighton, for example, and Croydon. So just say, look, this is how other councils do it, and this is how we'll do it. So I think being more proactive and actually and defining and say, actually, you know what, there's you, and Ben might consider this, we are this kind of, yeah, the content design experts, or we will craft that. You are the SMEs, you on the accuracy of that information, you tell us that information, and we'll craft it in a way that again goes back to the user need, that's key for the user, and it'll present to them the best way, really.
Wow, thank you. I think we've got time for one more question. I'm going to come to Ben. I know you've answered them, but just maybe coming in on this next stage, I guess. So when would the content design work that you identified that's required in the audit then be done before migration? How long are you allowing for that process, that work?
Yeah, so it's underway at the moment. So we've done bins, waste, recycling, council tax, and benefits. Council tax and benefits going live in December. Basically, because there's two content designers, we both lead on a section and we kind of cross-reference and 2i each other's work. The deadline for the project is the end of March. Because we prioritized it as well, we're doing the key stuff first. So if we get towards March and there's like 3 or 4 sections that are still left, it's kind of more acceptable to then move that content with a lot less attention, because it's low volume, low need, low user need. So that's, yeah, I doubt we'll be able to content design all of it, but yeah, that's just the scale of the project. So we've got basically another 4.5 months.
Good luck, all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Okay, I think we're going to end the session there.
Cool.
We've got another one at 1 o'clock, which is on Open Referral UK, so another open source project from the Digital Fund. So do join us for that. Thank you so much, Jayvik, Nova, and Ben. That was great. Such a nice way to get into the nitty gritty and see behind the scenes, pull back the curtain. Jayvik, you said a few times you're very open if people want to follow up with you. You're on Slack.
I'm on
do.
Slack. Message me, and I've just shared in the chat. Any of the sort of the files or the frameworks that you so more than happy to share, and have a template that if you want to use to help you get started, then just send me an email.
Great. Okay. Thanks everyone for coming and for your lovely questions. Great questions. I hope you found it useful. We'll get the video up pretty soon. Please give us some feedback. Jayvik's host, so he will see that as well, which is really nice to get to hear what you thought of it. We've had some really nice feedback and some constructive feedback as well. So thank you. Thank you again to our sponsors, Anatech, Agile Collective, and Big Blue Door. More sessions this week. We've got one more day after this. We've got 5 more sessions, so come and join us. That's it. See you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See you
Bye.
later.